It's recording now. It shows up everyone. Hello everyone.
You guys be safe. It's nice meeting you all.
Good evening, everyone. It's very good to see everyone here. Candidates, audience. It's a wonderful evening.
You're muted.
I'm muted.
I cannot hear you.
You know, 2 years of pandemic, and I'm still figuring this out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear okay? I'm okay?
You are doing fine.
Right, thank you.
You know, as they say, it's not you, it's me.
Recording in progress.
Great. By the way, I was just told by Jean not to make any corny jokes. Jean, I almost did not do this event because you said that. But then I remember Chris Rock at the Oscars. So, no more corny jokes.
No more comment.
We just have 3 rules for the candidates. Rule number 1, each question, opening, closing, is about 1 minute. Every question generally has a yes or a no answer. So we made it very easy, Board of Education. Yes or a no answer followed by an explanation. If I can redirect the question once in a while, if I don't hear a yes or a no. I may put you on a spot. Rule number 3, everybody relax. Life is too short to be on a Board of Education election and die for it. So relax everyone. Let's have some fun. We'll go in the order from here, Susan, and then for the next question, Megan from you, and Lin Feng, I'll pick you up once in a while. We'll pick you up, right? And then once in a while, we'll just go random, so that it's fair to everyone. The first question is on school safety. Do you believe the schools should have SROs? And would you support putting SROs back in the middle school if elected? Susan, we'll start from you. Well, let me figure this out, that part.
Yes, I would support SROs. I do support SROs, and I also would support them in the middle schools. I think that our children are, at least mine is my most valuable protection, and I hope that the county would do the same. And there have been incidents recently, Long Reach, fights breaking out in other schools, and I think it's imperative that we have safety in our schools and that we protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Thank you. So yes, I support SROs or some other safety officer in the school system, and I support them being in middle schools. I think they have to be in all middle schools. I don't think we can pick or choose middle schools. I don't think that sends the right message. I think that right now school safety is an issue. I am really concerned about the school prison pipeline, but I think SROs are very reactive, and I also feel like we need to be proactive. And so I'd love a world where we didn't need SROs in our school because we didn't have fights, right? The SRO intervenes after the fight has happened. We need to address the issue of safety in our schools, and we need to have programs that increase the safety and decrease the issues in the schools. And we need to do that in a way that we reduce discipline disparities. So discipline disparities being that outcomes often are more core for our Black and brown students, our special education students, and our male students. And we need programs to address that as well.
Yes, I fully support SROs in both middle school and high school. They are very highly trained specifically to deal with youth, and they can be de-escalators in many, many cases. And I also
I'm sorry, I'm radioactive. So.
Testing, does that work?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Good?
Perfect.
Okay. SROs are specially trained. They go through a great deal of training, specifically to deal with youth, de-escalate many situations, and as far as the prison to pipeline, the state's attorney will say, and that is, it's been reported in the Baltimore Sun, that we don't have that issue in Howard County. I think teachers need to feel that their area, their environment is safe, so they are comfortable teaching, and students need to feel safe so they can learn. Thank you.
So my answer is no, we need better security than SROs. I believe in listening to the experts. For COVID, you listen to public health experts. For school safety, I listen to the United States Secret Service, who keep President Biden safe and protect the White House. And they say that the most important people for school safety, you want to improve school safety in schools, you hire more counselors, you hire more psychologists. That is how you stop fights. That is how you stop school shootings. We need security personnel, but they need to be HCPSS personnel who we hire, we train, we oversee, and if they're not up to the job, we fire them. Not a third-party officers. You don't need a badge and a gun to break up a school in a middle school, break up a fight in a middle school. You need designated people who are up to the job, but they do not need to be police officers. I want police officers out on the street preventing crime. I want educators and HCPSS employees in our schools keeping our kids safe. Thanks.
I'd like to answer the question that it depends. I don't believe that SROs or any one human being can protect a school. It really requires, if the first line of defense, the first responders are usually the educators, the teachers. The teachers need to know how to de-escalate. The teachers need to understand the social emotional needs of the students. The administrators as well, pretty much anyone in the building interacting with students. So the SROs, one person, myself as an educator, when I taught at Long Reach High School, any situation in my classroom I handled. If I called the administrator, by the time they came up to the classroom, it was done. I'd already taken care of it, right? And so unless you have people who are trained to work with young people, and police officers are not trained to work with young people. And so if you're going to have SROs who are around the building to protect the outside corridor of the building, then yes.
Thank you for the question. My name is Dr. Monique Richards. We didn't get to do our introduction, but the answer is yes, and the explanation is that I think that they have their place in the schools, but across all middle schools and in all high schools. I think that the softer uniforms that were proposed by the county executives would help, because I don't think the police presence needs to be so in your face in the schools, but they do help with emergency planning for the administrators and the schools, and I think that school safety is a priority. Thank you.
All right, I'll try and use my teacher voice, right? So I say yes. I feel like we can get the benefits of that program while also mitigating any of the problems we have. So the announcement that was made last year, I think had some good ideas in there. We don't want people to feel unsafe, or to so some feel safe but others do not feel safe. As far as middle school, our middle school was one that had an SRO. This year they did not. This year they've had far fewer incidents than in pre-pandemic years, even though there's so much going on with the pandemic, coming back to school, so many conflicts and discipline issues. But I think the main thing that was behind that is, for the first time in many years, that school is under capacity. It's been over capacity for many years. So I don't know that it was related at all to SROs, but overcrowding is a big problem. I guess my time's up. Thanks.
Lincoln?
Okay, my turn. I'm sorry, I cannot hear clearly because I have to guess in it's my turn.
It is your turn.
Okay, thank you. So answer is absolutely yes. So I want to keep the SRO in the middle school and keep the high school. The reason is, as academic focused candidate, the school safety is essential for students to achieve academic success. Students need a safe environment to learn. And right now, SRO is the best resources available to school to keep a school safe. They are well trained and fully vetted, and the county funded, basically free from the school to school system. So if you look at it, that's 40 hours of training for the basic SRO training. That's additional 24 hours of advanced training. So, and then if you look at the thing happen now, it's a lot of staff shortage, and we have more incidents this year. So if you ask now, definitely we need more actually SRO than before. And if you look at the neighboring county, some of the counties have removed SRO. What's the result? What do you want to do now? They want to bring the SRO back. That's the reason behind, right? So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. To our next question. The second question is on neighborhood schools and redistricting. Do you support neighborhood schools? And do you think balancing socioeconomic criteria or status should be one of the goals of any redistricting? We will start from Megan.
Okay. Thanks. So redistricting has been something that I've followed closely since 2017 because my children attend school in overcrowded schools. We need to always address capacity first. That's always going to be number one. The other factors that we find in the policy 6010 help us to choose the best path forward out of the different options we have to balance capacity. We want to make sure when we are solving one problem, we are not creating a new problem. We don't want to have pockets of concentrated poverty. We don't want to have people, individual students getting moved multiple times. We don't want to have people that can walk to school getting put on a bus. We don't have the money for that. We don't have bus drivers. So that would be kind of my idea with redistricting. Capacities first. The other factors help us. They are important as well, but we really need to make sure we address capacity. Thanks.
So the question was about socioeconomic.
Yeah, the question is, do you support neighborhood schools? Yes or no? And do you think balancing socioeconomic status should be one of the goals of any redistricting? And obviously, an explanation around it.
So no, I don't think that socioeconomic status should be a role used in the redistricting. I think that the overcapacity issue has been a problem for many years, even over decades, and I think the Board of Education needs to work to collaborate with the council and the county executive to have a vision for making sure that all the facilities, resources are up to par and above par, really, so that all of our students have access to the great education that Howard County is known for.
Socioeconomics, the issue of deciding whether a child should go to a particular school based on socioeconomics is addressed in policy 6010. I believe in neighborhood schools if we had the environment where we would have neighborhoods that were conducive to that. But because of the way Howard County has allowed building in the county, then it makes it, we have pockets of poverty and pockets of affluence. And so the equity in the school system is impacted by the affluence or the disadvantage of another community. And so I think that if the only way the county can get equity is by distributing children, I think that's a foolish decision. But I believe that whatever they decide to do, children should come first. We need to be concerned about their social emotional needs. The teachers need to really get a real understanding of the social emotional needs of our students, and they don't really have a grasp on that like the way they should. Thank you.
I think with capacity, the biggest issue is that the growth in the county does not support neighborhood schools right now. The schools are in the wrong places. We've grown uncontrollably all over the county. And it doesn't do any kid any good, no child any good to be in a school that's at 130% capacity. And so I think what we need to do is we need to stick with what 6010, our policy 6010 says, which is a balanced approach. So the first is facility utilization, capacity. We need to make sure that we've got schools that are not overcrowded, because that doesn't serve our students, it doesn't serve our educators. Second is community stability, and that's not, unnecessarily dividing neighborhoods and separating kids. We need to use a scalpel and not a chainsaw when we redistrict. We need to be really, really precise and first do no harm. But the third factor is the socioeconomic, the student demographics, and that is important. When you have overwhelming numbers of kids with high needs because they're growing up in poverty, it hurts everyone in the district.
But let me just ask, clarify. So do you support neighborhood schools or no?
My neighborhood is Howard County. Yes, I support neighborhood schools.
That was not the question, but that's it.
I live in the real world. If we all could go to our schools in our neighborhood and not have
I'll go to
overcrowding,
Curie
then
now.
yes, but,
I'll go to QE now.
okay.
Thank you for the question. Redistricting is one of my pillars. It's something, one of the reasons that I decided to step up and enter this race. We should prioritize neighborhood schools whenever possible. Children need to be in their neighborhoods where their family and friends and support services are there. The last redistricting was a social experiment that made national news for its chaos. Walkers were placed on buses. Often the receiving schools did not have the services in place that the students and families have been relying on. These unintended consequences were the result of a policy that clearly was not well thought out. And of course, the cost of the additional busing is something that has to be noted. Where the common course, where is the common sense in that? We elevated the challenge for these children and families who are least equipped to deal with the disruption. This is not equity. Also, we do have wonderful services and delivery services in Title I schools, and the longer we go with lowering those numbers,
Thank you.
those are going to go away.
Thank you.
Great, so I support neighborhood schools. We chose to live where we chose to live because we wanted diverse schools. And so our kids go to Bryant Woods Elementary School and Wild Lake Middle School. But I am concerned that there are schools where poverty is being concentrated, and it's in the area, and it's in that area, and it's in, it's in my neighborhood, larger neighborhood. But we absolutely need the grown-ups at the beginning of the process, the zoning process. to make these decisions and not expect the kids at the end of the process to fix those problems. And we just had a candidate for county council who advocated for putting all of the low-income housing in downtown Columbia. And that is exactly what you're doing. You're concentrating the poverty, you're decreasing the quality of the schools, because we know the concentration of poverty in schools decreases the opportunities for our students and the quality of education for our students. And so, thank you.
Yes, I do support neighborhood schools. I think it's very important that when redistricting does occur, that we don't disrupt families and children so much. I believe that, you know, if the Howard County school system, which has been very well received by everybody, is so good, why would it differ so much in each school that we would need to make that kind of drastic move to bus people all the way across in another area to get them there, and to really disrupt family life and make it more difficult on parents. Time restraints, things like that, you know, going to school, sports is, I do support neighborhood schools, and I think it's important for our families to be taken care of and be the priority, and that's what I think.
Lin Feng, can you hear?
Sure. Yes, I can hear. So even I raised hand for a long time, I'm not strong, but it's okay. So I firmly believe in the neighborhood school, because everybody here is take a village to raise a kid. The village here is the neighborhood. And also I believe that redistricting should be only used to address the school capacity issues in a manner that's the least disruptive to students. As we tell to the last 2019 redistricting, we have so many issues. We try to address the community development problem using the school system. That is wrong. We solve the equation from the wrong direction. So I think that the school should be, we cannot, even socio-economic issue, we want to force integrate the community. We should from the county level, how we develop a neighborhood that can have all the socio-economic diversity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lin Feng. The third question, and Lin Feng, we'll start with you now. You have the advantage of knowing everybody's answers before, so we'll start with you now.
Thank you.
So the third question is about developer influence. Have you pledged or promised not to take developer money? If yes, then why? And if no, then why not? Do you think the developers have influenced any past BOE actions? Lin Feng, will start with you. And then
Sure, thank you. Actually, I did a pledge when it's available to me, I pledge immediately, and I'm very proud to do that. One big reason is the development money made a huge contribution through the history in terms of the school overcrowding issue. So we have to make sure the money influence election in a way benefit developers, not for the families and the students. That's why I'm so proud to make the pledge. That's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Susan, will start with you and then go this way. Sure. I'll repeat the entire question.
All right.
Have you pledged or promised not to take developer money? If yes, then why? And if no, then why not? Do you think the developers have influenced any past BOE actions?
No, I have not taken a pledge to not take developer money, but I don't plan on taking developer money. And even if, that is public knowledge, what monies are received by all the candidates. Yes, and I am sure that in the past that BOE people have been actually influenced by developer money, and I think that that's a shame, and it's really not supporting students and really our children's needs. It's just increasing other people's wealth and influence, and I'm against that. I'm really about schools and education to take care of our children and families.
Thank you.
I will not take developer or dark money donations. I took the pledge as soon as I could. I do not have a political party affiliation either, because I think it's important that this is a nonpartisan race. I absolutely think that developers have influenced BOE decisions. I think redistricting is one where they clearly did. There was clearly redistricting that was happening under the guise of socioeconomics that opened up districts, school districts, so developers could build in those districts that has historically been closed. And I think the two big ones that come to mind are Pointers Run and I can't think of the name of the community, but it's where Honey Baked Ham is up off of 108. Dorsey, the Dorsey Hall community.
Yes.
And I think that if we got developers out of this, actually redistricting would go much better. It would be better for our community. And I'm really concerned about it. And I'm sure they influence it in other areas as well. I think they contribute to a lot of the divisiveness that actually happens in Howard County, which is a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will not be taking developer funds. I knew at the onset of this race that the developer funds are an issue. And I did sign a pledge. I created my own words. It's on my website. And I really would not have any idea if the developers were involved in the last redistricting. It was so chaotic. It was so impossible to follow. But I did make the statement that I don't want to have any voter be concerned that I would be influenced at all by any third party in any of my decision making. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I've pledged not to take developer money, and I've gone further. I'm not taking any corporate money. I'm not taking money from any lobbyists. I think the influence of money on our democracy is really corrosive. And I really hope that our state delegation passes laws so that the Board of Education race can be funded by the public campaign fund like the rest of the county races are. It's outrageous that to run for Board of Ed, we have to raise tens of thousands of dollars. It really is horrible if you think about it. I honestly don't know what influence you has on other past boards. I just know that for myself, I'm guided by my values. I'm guided by looking out for the best interests of the children of Howard County, and that's not going to change.
I did not take the pledge. I entered the race in April 13th. And so I wasn't aware of the pledge, but I don't see the need in my taking the pledge because I will not be influenced by any developer. I have not been approached by any developers, and I do not plan to be approached by any developers, so I don't see the need in taking the pledge. And it's kind of a gotcha, because if you're donating on my site and I don't know that you're a part of a developer, then that would be a gotcha for me. So I'm taking individual donations, but I don't know what you're affiliated with, and people can donate as they please, but I personally will not be influenced. And if you know anything about me, the real McCoy, I'm not easily influenced. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I did sign the pledge not to accept developer money. I am a small fish in the big sea, and I don't expect them to give me any money anyway. But in case anyone who didn't know me checked, on this pledge site, they could see that I did sign the pledge. And I do not think that developers should be influencing the Board of Education at all. It is a nonpartisan role that we are elected officials. And I think that it's a shame that, according to the APFO, that developers can pay in lieu of fees in order to not build moderate housing, which then affects the overcapacity in different pockets of Howard County. And so, no, I don't think developers should be influencing the Board of Education or our decisions. Thank you.
Yes, I was proud to be, I believe, the first Board of Ed candidate this year to sign the No Developer Money, No Dark Money pledge. I signed it as a voter before I even decided to run. I think that there is a lot of influence in this county on all the political parties with developer money, and it has definitely had an impact on the Board of Education as far as deciding when to redistrict, whether or not to redistrict. Where to choose sites for schools has had a big impact on the wishes of developers has had a big impact on that. And I would also not take money from either political party because I feel like they're getting a lot of money from developers as well. So if I get any of those donations, they're going back. Sorry.
Thank you. The fourth question is on testing policies. Great. Do you believe we should measure merit? If yes, how do you suggest we close achievement gap? And tonight we'll start from you.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. Do you believe we should measure merit? If yes, how do you suggest we close achievement gap?
You mean merit?
Merit.
Okay, yes, thank you.
This is about testing and grading.
Okay. Yes, of course, we're gonna have tests, we're gonna have grades. That's kind of an essential part of school. Obviously, some people don't do as well on tests, and different kinds of measures of success are easier for some than for others. I think we have to have tests. I don't think there is any way around it, but we do need to make sure that we are helping every student to have the things that they need to succeed. There are a lot of people that aren't identified as needing special help, especially people that don't have as many, resources outside of the school to help them to navigate that process. So we need to make sure that we are proactively stepping in to make sure that those supports are there for students that need them. And we need to make sure that we're addressing any other issues that are interfering with school, like bias or other things like that.
So, yes, is the answer to the question, and I say that because we have to know who's moving on to the next level and who's not, but in terms of being able to measure a child's ability to understand the material, I think we need to make sure we're taking into account their learning modalities. And not enough children who need IEPs have them, and I think that we need to make sure that those children are identified early and are able to be assessed appropriately so that they're not at a disadvantage and are able to move through school in a way that benefits them and so that they can get the best education that Howard County can afford them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that testing, as an educator, I've got 35 years of experience in education, and I think there need to be multiple methods of measuring your capacity. Some people just do well in tests, and some people don't test well at all. And testing in this country has been used as a gatekeeper to keep some people out. And good test takers don't necessarily make good doctors, good educators, good anything. It just makes them good test takers. And so if a child is not a very good test taker, there needs to be other opportunities for them to show their abilities to handle the material that they're presented.
I think we definitely need to keep testing and grading. I mean, that's sort of essential to how American education is built. The emphasis on these big, high-pressure tests, though, doesn't do our kids a lot of favors. I mean, there's so much pressure, so much mental health impact on our kids because they feel like these tests decide their futures. And so I think we need to really think about that. And it can be really hard for our teachers, too, our young educators who come in the classroom, and there's all this pressure for them to prep the kids for these tests. There's not a lot of freedom that they're given to tailor the curriculum on their own because they have to reach certain milestones. They're under a lot of pressure. I really think we need to spend more resources and more focus on supporting our educators in the classroom. We've removed para-educators. We've removed math specialists and reading specialists in these past budgets. And that's not doing our kids any good. We need to restore those folks to our classrooms so that our teachers can really help our kids. And if we did that, if we gave the teachers all the resources we need, if we really staffed our schools and our classrooms the way they need to be staffed, then I think we'll see test scores and grades show that.
Thank you.
I firmly believe that testing needs to take place. I think any school system worth its salt must have regular testing. Students need to develop that work ethic to make sure that they are meeting certain tasks. That's the way it is in life. We're going to prepare them to move on after school, after high school. They need to have these practices ingrained. Lowering expectations is a disservice to any student. Thank you.
I believe we should measure merit, but I think there's lots of ways to measure merit. And so I'm a university professor, and I see that what I'm asked to do is to move away from testing and move towards big projects. That testing isn't a very good way for students to learn. whereas doing big projects actually is. It's a way of synthesizing all those ideas. It's a way of thinking. It's not just about knowing the facts. And so much you can look up the facts on Google. You need to learn how to synthesize that all together. And that's what the American education system is so very good at. That's why people want to come here for our education system. Closing the achievement gap, we have to address special education. We have to address low-income learners. We know that low-income learners, that leads to less favorable outcomes. And one of the things I really feel like is we need better after-school programs and more equitable after-school programs, because for low-income earners, they need to learn outside the classroom as well.
Thank you.
Yes, I do believe in testing. I believe that, teachers in the classroom have a pretty decent measure of the children. If they see that there's a discrepancy between their work and their testing ability, I would think that they would take that time to make adjustments and maybe work with the child to see if they can improve those, testing scores, or improve, and also just look at, hey, well, they're doing good here and they're not doing as well testing, so, give them a little bit, maybe a different avenue or a different way to learn those skills, or something that'll work better to their learning style. I definitely think that testing is essential, and I don't really see that socioeconomic status has an influence on intelligence, so I don't really understand why that is.
Thank you. Lin Feng?
Sure. So for me, the grading and exams are absolutely a very good way to measure the progress, and actually the objective way to measure. So we talked about the gap. How do we identify exams and the grading? So we can know where we need to put the additional resources, additional help to put in the right places. So, and in terms of achievement gap, a couple things we need to do. First, the universal pre-K education. That's so important to put the resources in the early stage. Make sure all the kids can start the same resources. Then the second thing is the students. They spend time only 6 hours at school. There's so many hours outside. So we need to encourage families, communities to get involved with their children's growth and provide the reinforced enrichment after the school hours and during the summer. And the HCTS also need to listen on the underserved communities and the immigrants with the language barrier, whose voices are open to.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
It's very hard on Zoom to control somebody's time, I guess. And Lin Feng is taking advantage of that.
No.
No, we see you. Anyway. Let me start with, the fifth question, which is on the budget. And I'll start from you. What do you think the BOE should cut in terms of expenses from the proposed superintendent budget so that it can balance it? Is there any one line item that you would see be fully funded or not cut?
That I would see what
Fully funded or not cut. So what are your, basically, it's a question on your budget priorities. And budget involves limited money.
Right.
So superintendent proposed a budget. The budget from the county executive obviously is not to the fullest extent that was asked. So a few things have to be cut.
Right.
What is it that you would be a priority, and what would you not like to see cut?
I think, first of all, in our budget, of course, the education system and taxpayers pay for education of their children. So obviously, I think it's something that needs to definitely be a priority is education, excellence, teachers in AP classes, gifted and talent classes that can challenge students, that can help people to rise up to their full potential, nurture every child's individual talents and specialties, the things that make them unique and different. I would say there are some things that I see that are inundated in the budget that our actual state funds could address, like some of the mental health money that's being thrown into the schools. I believe that we have state welfare and just different benefits that can help that instead of putting that burden on our schools. And I see a lot of funding going to that, and I'm not sure why that is becoming such a priority. It seems a little bit redundant to me that we're using taxpayer funding for school to service mental health when we have those funds outside to service those issues.
But is there any line item that you would not cut? Just
That I would not cut.
would not cut.
I certainly wouldn't cut the maintenance or the addition to schools and
Got
things
it.
like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I am gonna push back a little bit on this question, because, and it's actually, I think, something Dr. Wu always brought up in the boardroom, which is, I wanna make sure everyone knows that we're not cutting what we currently have, right? We're getting more money. And so we're not talking about cutting things we currently have, it's just, we're not going to get our dreams. And our dreams are high, and they should be. And I think where I would really like to focus is that we can reach our dreams by having better economic policies. And two that come to mind are special education. I think that we really identified students. For every 2 special education students we have identified, we're missing 1. If you look at the numbers of adjacent jurisdictions or national numbers. And that comes back as lawsuits, which are expensive. And we need to make sure, it also means we don't capture the money from the state that we would get for special education students, but we're still educating those students and we still want high outcomes for them. So we need better policies in that regard. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. I think the one thing that you could never cut is teachers. The teachers can do such an amazing, miraculous job in the poorest of neighborhoods. If you have a good teacher, teachers are life-changing. And it's clear we have a shortage right now, and we are gonna have to work very, very hard to dig ourselves out of the shortage that we have. Teachers and special education are a line that I would not cut. Thank you.
I'm on my 2nd year of serving on the OBRC, which is the Operating Budget Review Committee, Vipin and Dr. Chen, and it's incredibly hard. These are really hard choices. And like was said, it's not a true cut, it's just cutting down from what was asked. But what was asked was absolutely necessary. There are no easy line items to cut in this budget. I do believe we need to focus resources on the classrooms, on the educators. We need to get those paras back. We need to make sure we're not cutting any more specialists for reading and math. That's just essential. We need to make sure we're getting those resources in the classrooms where it has the most impact on kids. But we can't keep doing what we're doing by hollowing out the central office, right? If you cut positions like in HR to fund para-educators, then you don't have enough people in HR to hire all the teachers that you need. That's what this thing gets so hard, is that we need to make sure we're an innovative, really effective school board and school system from the top down, but our focus needs to be on helping the classroom. So we can't afford to have a hollowed out central office, but we need to support the teachers.
Well, as an educator, I know, I taught in Baltimore City, and believe it or not, the pay in Baltimore City is higher than the pay in Howard County. So when I came back to Howard County, I took a pay cut, only because I wanted to work where I live. So we would not want to cut. We actually need to increase teacher salaries in order to be competitive. Montgomery County and PG County and Anne Arundel County are taking some of our best teachers because we don't pay equitably. And so I would not cut that, and I would not cut special ed. As was indicated by Dan and by Susan, that the budget, by Julie Hotop, sorry, by Julie Hotop, that we're not cutting, we're just not adding extra as much as we wanted. And so I would definitely focus on increasing the number of teachers and increasing the pay of the teachers and bringing back the paras and the specialists. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that it's important that we fund education in Howard County. That's what brings a lot of people to live in Howard County because of the great reputation our educational system has. However, if there's anything I would cut, it would be the stipends received by the Board of Education members, because I believe that serving on the Board of Education is a public service. I chose to run because I want to be able to advocate for the children who don't have the advocacy that they have, that my children have. And I feel that I'm a passionate advocator. I also would work to influence the county council and the county executive to fully fund the board, the education budget, because funding at 22% versus 50% when what we need is closer to 100% of what is asked is what will allow us to pay our teachers adequately, pay them much higher than they are receiving now, and also pay for the teachers that provide special services. Thank you.
All right, well, I do hope that the county council will restore some of the money that was taken from the school system budget. That's hope. We should all tell them that. But yes, as was alluded to, most of the times when we're cutting something out of that budget, it's going to be things that we were planning to add, whether it's additional positions or new programs that we wanted to have happen. I'm hopeful that the county will get some projects they have already ready to go, but there's just some hangups to build sidewalks throughout our county. There's some areas where we could have more kids walking to school, but they don't have a safe way to go right now, like in our community. We could have had 300 fewer people on the bus this year if we had our sidewalks built. But I would want to make sure we protect class sizes. That's been increased several times, and we really need to preserve it or keep it lower if we can. And I would also want to emphasize special education, because I feel like we haven't put the money into it that we need to.
Thank you. Lincoln?
Okay, so if we are talking about budget, then we need to look at what's our priority, what's our strengths. Our strengths are our teachers, the quality of our teachers. What's the bigger problem we are facing? The staff shortage. So when that's clear, for me, the money, the budget priority, we need to make sure it's well staffed. We have a good teacher. It's that, the teacher, not just general education as well as special ed. We make sure the shortage problem can be gone and the money can support them. We definitely have another area we can reinforce. We can consider, for example, transportation side, we can optimize. We can remove some money over there. And also the devices, computers, there's a 40 million right there we can think about. And also the utilities. We can use a more efficient system for the school system. I work on the HVAC. I know that's a good technology there. We gotta use that technology. Do more with less. Thank you.
Thank you, Lincoln. I have these couple of audience questions that I want to take. And thank you for those who are sending these questions. I think they are very important. And I'll start, Lincoln, from you, and then Meg, go to you, and then this way around. Fair enough? Please let us know, do you think we should include LGBT books in elementary school library? I will add, including the ones that have been recently in use for its explicit content. Or for that matter, middle school library or high school library. So any library, please.
So my point here, the school is for the academics. If that's related to all the students' education, then I totally support that. But if it's not, we need to put the bipartisan politics out of the school that focus on the core strengths, academics. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, the book that's gotten a lot of controversy, not something that's found in an elementary school library. Don't think it's even found in a middle school library. But I would say we should have books that are appropriate to the age level. And I've met some really amazing media specialists. They do wonderful work. They're awesome people, and they're trained in this field, picking books that are appropriate for schools age, whether elementary, middle, or high school. And I don't think we can just say, well, we don't want any books about LGBTQ people. There's LGBTQ people, like, we're not gonna not have that be a thing. But obviously, every family, every parent, you can teach their kids. You can teach your kids, and you should teach your kids what your values are. That is your right, that is your responsibility. But public schools for everybody. That's my view. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I don't think that they should be included in elementary school libraries because they would be accessible from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And I think that there's an appropriate time for the education of children to learn about the different families
that do exist in our society. And so public school education should not be used to promote any specific lifestyle. I think that the education of our children is a collaborative effort between the school, the community, and our families. And we shouldn't impose our beliefs on other people. That's my answer.
We live in the real world, and I remember when my daughter was in elementary school, and she had a young lady in her class who had 2 moms, and we talked about it. But I only did it as was age appropriate. And I believe that as Meg was saying, that our school librarians are wise and they have guidelines that they follow as well. And so we cannot hide our children from the reality of the world, but it is our responsibility to teach our children our values. Teachers are not there to teach values. They're there to teach what they're supposed to teach. And if a child with the cell phone and all those things that children have access to, if you want to bury your head in the sand and pretend that they're not exposed to those things and you will not talk about those things in your home, that's your choice. But the reality is they're going to be exposed, and so we need to be ready to address them in an age-appropriate manner. Thank you.
So we have rigorous policies in place to ensure that every book in our library is age appropriate. It's policy 8040. I encourage you to go look it up on the HCPSS website. Our media specialists at our schools are amazing. They care so much about our kids, and they do such a great job. They can't just go out and buy books and stick them on the shelves. There's a really strict process in place to make sure that those books are vetted by the right authoritative bodies, and other other educators have to look at them. It's not just willy-nilly sticking books on the shelf. That's not how it works. That said, we're here in Miller Branch Library, one of my favorite buildings in the whole county. My kids call it the Froggy Library when they're little because of the frog statues outside. Books are sacred to kids. Books can be windows and mirrors. Books can be mirrors that kids can see themselves and see their lives and feel validated as they grow and try to figure out who they are. And books are also windows where kids can see into other people's lives that are totally different from their own. And in our society today, our county is so diverse, so wonderfully diverse, books are essential like that to help our kids grow.
Thank you for the question. I feel very strongly that those books are inappropriate for a public school system. I believe that the policy that Mr. Newberger, very respectfully, I disagree. I
May I
believe
have
that
your
policy.
attention, please? The Miller Branch will close in 30 minutes at 6 p.m. Please be sure you've made your copies, completed your print jobs, and saved your work.
You got coming to an end.
Okay. I believe that policy has failed. I believe it's failed our county. The book, one of the books that they're talking about, it embarrasses me to even talk about it, is Gender Queer. If anybody wants to see the book, I have it. I believe it is completely inappropriate, and as others have said, school is for school. We need to have core education. Values are taught at home by parents whenever and if they decide. I have grandchildren who have brought this issue up to me, and I don't say a word because that conversation has to come from their parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel strongly that we need inclusive books. My kids come home and they say things like, oh, only a man and a woman can get married. And I say to them, well, what's going on with your grandmothers? Because your grandmothers are married. And my husband grew up in a family with 2 moms in the 1980s, and it wasn't good for anyone in that family, that they were trying to hide it and that it wasn't inclusive. And so I feel very strongly we need to have inclusive, and it needs to start at an early age, and it needs to be about love, because everybody loves somebody, and that's what little kids care about. I think policy 8040 worked in this case. I encourage you to read the books. I have read Out of Darkness, and it isn't even an LGBTQIA+ book, but it's branded that way on social media. Read the book, read the Wikipedia page, and you'll see what's going on. It's about biracial relationships and race relations in the 1930s.
I strongly believe that these books states our children are not permitted to wear or promote, wear shirts and stuff that contain sexually suggestive materials, but we're gonna put these books in our classroom, in our libraries. I find it very inappropriate. I understand that we do have other, women and women together, men and men together, and that's, we can talk about that, but the sexual content in these books is inappropriate and it is not something we need to educate our kids on, because it's really about sexual acts. It's not about really that person or their experiences. It's I don't know. I have family members who are gay, and that I love them very much. But I think it's important that values are taught at the home. Teachers are to teach academics, and they're not really about worried about our children's sexuality. Thank you.
Lincoln?
I did. I'm the first one.
Okay. My bad. Before we say thank you, I would like to give all of you an opportunity to talk about your closing remarks, including why are you running, why should someone vote for you, and what is a question that I should have asked that I didn't. And feel free, I know it's a tall ask for 1 minute, but please try. But thank you all for coming in here today. Can we start?
Oh, sure. I was born and raised in Howard County, went through the public school system. We've done a lot of things right in Howard County. Our schools have been great, but I'm concerned about the direction that we're heading down. Our schools are overcrowded and they can't accommodate the current families here. Academic excellence no longer seems to be the primary mission of those in leadership positions. Our schools are in need of maintenance and many need to be modified and expanded. School shutdowns have resulted in a loss of learning across the board for most children. There's a lack of transparency in the decisions that are being made and the curriculum that's being taught to our children. Like I said, these people in leadership positions are violating our own policies in order to ensure that sexually explicit books remain in school libraries, despite the cries and the outcrying of parents. The desire to focus on promoting kindness in schools and equality and equality in educational opportunities has become a license to teach racist theories and obsession with the sexuality of our children. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I'm running for the Board of Education because of my passion for education, particularly science education. I'm a scientist and a professor with a lifelong dedication to educating the next generation of science leaders and encouraging STEM experiences and careers. Here's some of the issues I feel like we haven't hit on that are important to me. We currently don't have enough capacity, and development continues. We need schools so that every child has a seat in a brick and mortar classroom instead of a portable. We need appropriate school start times that align with our children's biological clocks. We have too many issues with safety and bullying in our schools affecting far too many children. We need to have safe and bully-free schools. We also need to address the learning loss that happened during the pandemic, and to that end, I propose that we use Recovery Act money to reduce class sizes so teachers can do what they do best, which is to teach our children and address learning loss. I'm Dr. Julie Dunning-Hotop, and you can find out more at hotop4BOE.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here today. I lived in Howard County for over 30 years. The school system served my children very well. I have 2 grandchildren in the schools now. I am very concerned, and so are many other parents. The school system is accepting a national political agenda. It is affecting the teachers' workload, our funding, our safety, our redistricting, and our libraries. My pillars are to keep schools open, keep schools safe. I support SROs. Keep grading and maintain high expectations for all students. Prioritize neighborhood schools. Teachers need support from the BOE to focus on core subjects. They're overburdened with other issues that take up precious time away from our children. I also include fully funding special education, no racism, no bias, no discrimination. Celebrate diversity, all cultures, and all lifestyles. Funding should be targeted to core education and address the learning loss. I'll be a fierce advocate for these issues. look us up at adler4boe.com. Thank you.
I'm Dan Newberger. I've got 2 kids in the schools, a 3rd grader at Swansfield Elementary and a 6th grader at Harper's Choice Middle School. My wife and I came here in 2013 for the same reason that so many of us come to Howard County, because of the schools, because of these excellent schools, and we want the very best for our kids. That's what brings this community together, even if we disagree on so much about how to get there. That's what all of us are united in, is how do we keep our schools great? And there's a sense in Howard County that things are not going all that well. There's a huge disconnect between how good our schools are and how we all sort of feel about them right now. I think we can agree. And I think we all can sense that things are slipping. Institutions don't stay great, right? There's decay, there's slow slippage over time. And I think we're at one of those points where we need to really get serious about investing in our schools in a smart way. We need to recover from the pandemic. The kids are hurting. The kids have had learning loss, they have mental health issues, they have behavior issues. There's a lot going on in the hallways right now and in the schools. We need to address that over these next couple of years. It's not going to go back to normal by itself. We need to also take care of our staffing issues and make sure we're bringing in the very best teachers in the county. Thanks.
I'm Jackie McCoy. I'm a 35-year plus educator. I've taught at Long Ridge High School. I have 3 children who graduated from Long Ridge High School, and I've been a tutor. I'm really invested in education. I currently have 2 grandchildren who are just starting. One is in 5th grade, about to go to middle school, and one who's about to go to kindergarten. So I'm fully vested. I believe that we need to have real access, real education, and real parent involvement. So that's my commitment, that every student would have equitable access to the education that they should have. That the education should be quality education. We should have qualified teachers who know what they're teaching. We should have parents who understand the curriculum and can help their children. We've seen through COVID that most of the parents had no idea how to help their children because they were not familiar with the way that they're taught in schools. And so I am asking for the 3 reals, real education, real access, and real parent involvement. I'm the real McCoy. Thank you.
Thank you to the Chinese American Parent Association of Howard County and all of you parents and guardians who are interested in the education of our children. I am a parent, and my commitment to education was instilled in me by my parents, who came to this country as immigrants from Jamaica, and despite having to accept low wages until they were naturalized citizens, they were able to raise me and my sisters to become college graduates, and I went on to obtain my doctorate in pharmacy as well. So the influence of the parents are so important to the education of our children, and if elected to an at-large position on the Board of Education, I hope to maintain these lines of communication with the parents in our county so that we can hear from the people who are most vested in our children what is important and what needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Hi, Meg Ricks. I've been an educational advocate for over a decade. I've been a leader in PTA and in Girl Scouts and in other community service opportunities. And I am a teacher's assistant at a preschool, so I get to work every day with little people, future HCPSS students. Through my work at PTA, I've learned that it's my responsibility to make every child's potential a reality. It's all of our responsibility. Through Girl Scouts, as a Girl Scout and as a leader, I learned that I have to make the world a better place. It's up to me. And I want to do that in this position. I feel like I can make a difference. I don't have any other thing I want to do. I'm not running for anything else. I want to make sure we have what we need, the schools we need, the people inside, the staff that we need to run the schools, and the materials we need for each school. I want to make sure we have the supports we need for every student, for special needs, for mental health, and for, oh, my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Lin Feng?
Yeah. So I'm running for the school board because I really want to solve the pressing problems in our school system. Some of the pressing problems were already mentioned, for example, the drop in the academic performance, the staff shortage, the overcrowded school, the mental health crisis, and the school safety, and then lag behind the school's infrastructure, lack of the long-term planning, and the school start time. So if I'm elected, I focus on addressing these issues and challenging HCPS to come up with a solution to cultivate the best academic performance possible. As a parent, STEM candidate, strong leader, and a community advocate, and problem solver, analytical thinker, and a liaison who can bring their diverse group together for a common cause, the better education for all. I'm uniquely qualified to be your voice in the board and truly working for all students. If you have time, want to know my background and qualification, please grab a fly on the way out and encourage you to visit my website, chen4boe.org. Also, I take this opportunity to thank you all the volunteers. Thank you for being Jean, everybody.
Thank you, Len Feng. Before we conclude the event, please join me in thanking all the candidates. And thank you to this wonderful audience. Thank you to the organizers. Public services are, we are so glad that you're running. You know, Howard County is a better place because of you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Can we ask you guys one last favor? When you go out, please could you take your chair with one of the carriers? That would help us a lot. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you all for that. Absolutely.
Dr. Rick.
Yes.